Welcome back to Power Talks with Santosh Shah. We are in conversation with Dr. D. Aker and Mr. Eric Henry, experts on conflict, peace, and justice. Dr. D, the Supreme Court of Philippines recently intervened into the possible peace agreement that could have taken place and ended the Mindanao conflict. And how do you explain this unnatural phenomenon?
It's a very interesting story because it was a long process. It was 12 years, and during the last 5 to 6 years, actually a woman negotiator had been getting the government and the MILF involved in the negotiations. It had really progressed. They'd worked patiently over a long time, and last summer they were about to decide they had decided to sign an agreement. They were ready to sign, and the Supreme Court of the Philippines stepped in and said, you can't sign, told the government they could not sign the peace agreement, which created great havoc, needless to say. And the result was a return to violence. Once people invested this time and energy, feel the door is shut, they're likely to return to the previous situation. And so the Supreme Court, interestingly enough, I don't think was really engaged or worried about the details in the actual peace agreement. It's more of a power struggle, perhaps, within the government itself. And most of the Philippines is not as concerned with Mindanao. And so there's not a lot of coverage or publicity about what goes on or energy inside the country. So it's a long struggle back, but it started. Again, people are very much involved in trying to move the peace process forward again.
It's a sad story, at the same time a bad example, because if the Supreme Court intervenes into a peace agreement, that's not a good thing to look at.
Exactly. And it's very frightening because it could be repeated in a number of places. We see the Supreme Court getting engaged in a number of situations in a number of countries on peripheral issues that can derail a process that's going on.
Eric, this serious issue didn't pick up the global attention. Is that true that the world looks at a country's conflict if there is any monetary interest into it?
Certainly media attention and international attention as a result tends to be focused on conflicts that are perceived to have the most importance or impact. And certainly one argument, as you suggest, would be that countries with strong resources and extractive industries become a focus for international attention when conflicts arise in those areas, whether it's in Iraq or elsewhere, in Nigeria, conflicts in Venezuela, governmental conflicts attract a lot of attention perhaps for those reasons. But I think just more broadly, there's a limited bandwidth of public attention in any given media day or week or month or year for all the variety of, unfortunately, the multitude of conflicts worldwide. So there's always a sort of conflict almost for press and international attention. And I think it's been true over the last decades at least that the concentration of most media attention has been in the Middle East, where oil is, of course, a big issue, or has been in geopolitical terms when there is some conflict that appears to have broader implications. For instance, North Korea as an example. So I think the unfortunate result is that very significant and meaningful conflicts in more remote areas often don't receive the attention they should, and the Philippines is probably an example of that.
Dr. D, University of San Diego has established John B. Kroc School of Peace Studies for master's degree. What is the approach towards the curriculum in trying to contribute to global peace?
The new school, which is unique in the United States, it's not just a department in political science or international relations, it's an actual school, like a school of business. So this new school, which is unique, as I said, is actually focused in 4 areas. We're going to be looking at conflict resolution itself, conflict transformation, human security issues, and development. Because the truth is, when you go into a conflict or post-conflict situation, you need to be looking at the root causes for the conflict, dealing with those, as well as what's going on during the conflict, the human rights abuses we talked about at the beginning, the victims' rights, and also then development, but serious development that will end the original issues that sort of encourage the conflict in the first place, the root causes of the conflict. So all those 4 areas. And the students will come from worldwide, and do come from worldwide. Some are already engaged, coming for more information. Others are beginning to make this commitment to peace as a way of for the future.
Eric, CM Partners has actively contributed to solving a lot of conflicts. What is the unique approach that you take in doing that?
Well, Conflict Management Partners takes the view that it's not only institutions that have to be transformed to help manage conflict and post-war situations, but it's the individuals that make up those institutions that have to have some changes in the way they're approaching the problem. So I say what differentiates CMP from other organizations is that we're focused more on changing the perceptions and the methodologies of individuals who are trying to address these problems. And what I mean by that is there are many very good institutions around the world. What CM Partners is focused on is the individuals who comprise those institutions. And we work to equip them with best practice tools and ideas and methodologies for better working out their problems as individuals. And what we find hopeful is that when you get enough mass of individuals who possess a similar set of skill sets and an understanding that collaboration and interest-based approaches to problem solving rather than positional standoffs on problems tend to yield better results, you start to gain momentum even within those institutions. So we're sort of working at the more micro level might be the difference.
We'll continue with our conversation after a short break. Do stay with us.